We are ready for the business of the day, and the motion is simple. Nigeria's independence, did it take place at the right time? It will be the ferocious head-to-head encounter all the way. Mohammed, you will argue for the motion, and your opponent is Precious on the opposing side.
There was excitement in the air. The atmosphere was filled with merrymaking as Nigerians heralded a new dawn. The Union Jack was lowered. Nigeria's flag was hoisted. Freedom at last. But today, 49 years after, all we can boast of is corruption, bad leadership, and failed dreams. Lack of leadership experience is one reason Nigeria's independence came at the wrong time. And barely 6 years into nationhood, we started having problems which resulted in civil unrest and the subsequent political crisis. My opponent said that in 1960, a lot of Nigerians were educated. But let me bring to his notice that according to a research carried out by Dr. Maduagu of the University of Port Harcourt, less than 5% of Nigerians were educated in 1960. People, you cannot give a little child a car because he's too immature to drive by himself. Same goes for Nigeria. We were too immature to drive the vehicle of economic and political responsibility. And that is why, 49 years after independence, we are tied to the apron strings of the West. 49 years after, the promise of independence is yet to be realized. Thank you.
Precious, you spoke strongly against Nigeria's independence in 1960. You and I are aware that Chief Anthony Nahoro, who moved the motion for Nigeria's independence at that time, is still alive. If he was watching now, what would you tell him?
Very well then. In 1960, we were not ready for independence because the North at that time signified their interest not to be joined together. And with due respect, panel of judges, I would also like to tell you that Pa Anthony Enaro was barely in his 20s when he moved the motion for independence. We lacked matured people to tell us what to do and the right thing to do at the right time. So we are more of unwilling tribes joined together in an unholy alliance. When the purpose of a thing is not known, an abuse is inevitable. For example, when an infant learns to take his first steps, you allow him to get balance before you leave him to take his very first steps in life. But we didn't have that foundation. Anthony Enaro and other nationalists who struggled for our independence did well, but the overall picture, the end that they wanted for us, we have not been able to achieve because subsequent leaders who came up after them have spoiled the good foundation they laid for us. So we were not ready. Perhaps we could have waited a little longer so that we could get the required experience. Leadership experience is very necessary. That is what we didn't have. And that is why we subsequently had serious military crisis. For example, Shehu Shagari was overthrown. Sani Abacha died under questionable circumstances. Tafawa Balewa was murdered. Murtala Mohammed, one of the best leaders Nigeria could ever have, was also murdered. So we weren't ripe or ready for independence.